Welcome to the REI Diamond Interview, your source for real estate investment jewels of wisdom with Dan Breslin.
Welcome to the REI Diamonds episode number 29 with Russell Walker on buying, fixing, and wholesaling a large volume of real estate deals. I'm Dan Breslin, and on the REI Diamonds podcast, I invite world-class guests to share their valuable experience as it relates to real estate investing. In short, the information you're about to hear can make you money. Today's guest is a gentleman I recently had the pleasure of meeting in person, but both of our companies have simultaneously and kind of behind the scenes been doing business here for the last couple months through Aaron Lockhart, who is another guest on our show here. So today's guest is Russell Walker. Russell, welcome to the show.
Hey, Dan. Thanks for having me.
So just to kind of give a little bit of an idea, Russell is a very giving person of his knowledge. He loves to help out, new investors. I really liked Russell's approach to the business. I started to hear his name, and then I started to find out that we were, kind of doing business together. And then I started to hear more stuff about how Russell was, helping new people out in the business. And a lot of my listeners know, and some of them may not know, but I kind of take a similar attitude. So we'll have, we'll help new investors getting their first deals closed. We'll make sure that, someone who acts in the capacity as a bird dog, basically doing nothing more than bringing a lead to Diamond Equity Investments, we make sure they get more of an assignment fee, which is typically a check with a comma, whereas a bird dog's fee is a check without a comma, usually in about the $500 or less range, if anything. So, my attitude matches up with the stories that I hear about Russell and how Russell's helping new people get a real fair shake in the business. So, Russell, I guess one of the first questions I like to start off with was how did you get started in real estate investing?
How I got started, I was working a full-time job, and I thought this was it. I was earning about $70,000 a year, and I knew there was something more than that. I could do more than that. Why are people earning $300,000, $400,000 a year when I'm capped out here at $70,000? And max, I'm going to make a 3% raise every year for the next 10 years of my life, So I started reading about real estate, read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Allen, no money down techniques. And that basically got me started. I started buying and holding. It was my first, what I first started with. Basically, I bought and held about 10 properties before I done any flips. So I got mortgages in my name. I basically took all my money out of my IRA, 401k, and bought about 10 properties, condos cash, and 3 or 4 units using mortgages. Eventually, you buy so many properties, you run out of cash. So I had bought 10 properties in a row, and I was still working a full-time job, and, I ran out of cash to buy more. So I started reading about flipping properties, rehabbing. So basically that led into rehabbing, and I know it's funny, I started backwards. Most people start wholesaling and rehabbing, then buy and hold, and I started the opposite way. I started buying and holding first. That led into rehabbing. I was making decent money where I was $20,000 to $30,000 check every 6 to 9 months, doing 1 or 2 rehabs at a time. I was doing marketing, got a lot of leads from the marketing. I was throwing away a lot of leads. I said, there's got to be a way I can make money off these leads that I'm just throwing away. So then that inevitably led into wholesaling for me. So that's basically how I got, into wholesaling and how I got started.
So you kind of backed in then. You basically bought and hold properties, and then wanted to start flipping. And you, like myself, probably buy most of the fix and flip opportunities directly from sellers. Is that correct?
I do some foreclosures too, where it's...
Got it. So you started doing the marketing with the intention of actually fixing and flipping all the properties, and then, a lot of the stuff that was in neighborhoods that didn't work or that were too far for your contractors, you kind of, by default, started wholesaling those, right?
Right. Basically started meeting a couple guys that I knew that were buying, and, they were asking me, where do I get buy deals from, and I got a couple deals under contract, sent it to them, and, they were interested in buying, so that's how wholesaling got started for me.
I think it's important. So for new people, this is one of like the hang-ups I see a lot of times, people who are getting into wholesaling. You came in a very unique path. A lot of people, including myself, I came from, most of my real estate experience at the time was that I had signed one lease on a two-bedroom apartment. That was it. That was the extent of my real estate experience in 2006 when I did my first wholesale deal. So wholesaling was like my doorway into the business, Russell. I became a source of deals, and then I found some that worked for flips, and guys with money, felt that I was credible enough to lend, their private money and make an investment in my flips. And even to this day, I'm still doing deals with some of those early partners. So a lot of people get started that way, and it's like I came to the table like with no money and not a lot of success, and then found my way in wholesaling. But you came in as a buyer first. You bought and hold properties, and you were obviously getting some education and things along the way, and then started flipping properties. So I'm going to point out that the way that you thought about every real estate deal, and you can agree or disagree with me, was that you looked at every single opportunity, every single lead that came through the door. You viewed that lead from the shoes and the perspective of a buyer who had to bring cash in, whether it's your own or investors or a mortgage or whatever. You viewed these deals like you were a buyer and negotiated as such, then contracted it, and then assigned it to the next buyer. You didn't just come in with like a lack of knowledge. A lot of people come in and think that, you just go in and whatever the seller wants, you try to get like what you feel is a good deal. So if they want 100 and sign up for 80, regardless of the comps and the amount of repairs and everything, they wanted 100 and you got it for 80, so it's 20,000 less, and they try to like market that contract, which is like not a makeable deal. So would you agree with me in saying that like you are in a good position to be able to view those deals on the way into the business as a buyer, as opposed to like I had to do myself, I had to like trick myself into looking at them as a buyer and kind of like learn how to do that since I wasn't already buying properties? I mean, do you think that's like a beneficial mindset that people should try to like duplicate there, Russell?
Yeah, I mean, when you're wholesaling, you got to act as if you're buying the property as a good deal for me, because why would anyone else buy it if it's not a good deal? I kind of had an advantage as I bought quite a few properties before I started wholesaling, so I always knew, what was a good deal or not before I bought the property. Yeah, everybody that's getting into wholesaling needs to look at it as, would I buy that? Would I be able to make money off of this if I bought it myself? If not, then why would anyone else buy it from you?
And I think that some of the perception, because I've been educating new wholesalers like for, I don't know, the first time I ever mentored somebody was probably like 7-8 years ago, something like that. And I have experienced the mindset of people walking in the door, which is a little bit faulty, like a false reality. And a lot of people think like, this is how they think of real estate investors. They have some story about some uncle or some guy's uncle that has, 80 properties, and the guy bought them back in like, the 70s and 80s, and they're all paid off, and this guy's raking in like $100,000 a month in cash flow from his like entire portfolio paid off. And so their perception is they think that this kind of person has so much money that they just can't do anything but like just want to buy properties cash, and like they don't have to make a good deal. So a lot of times people outside the business and who are just getting started and they're coming to the table, they think like, oh, these investors are just like stupid money and they're just going to buy anything. All you have to do is get the contract regardless of the price, and someone else will give me 3, 4, 5,000, 10,000 more for the contract. Right. Like they don't have that definition and that really good gut feel for values and what a deal needs to be under contract, what deal price. Have you had any experience with that with new investors? I mean, I imagine. So let's talk about, before we get into the experience piece, so part of your business model, right? Let's talk about like the average month of Russell Walker at this point. You generate some deals in-house, and then I happen to know some of your business background lately, and you're doing like quite a few deals with like newer students and people who are just getting into the business, right? Can you elaborate on kind of like what comprises the structures of your business a little bit?
Yeah, basically we do a lot of direct mail. We do a lot of like AdWord marketing. I was doing about maybe 5 deals a month wholesaling. Just wholesaling before I started training new investors that got into the business. And basically I would train them on everything from marketing to negotiations to getting the deals under contract. And then basically they would get under contract, send me the deal, and we would be partnering on the deal. So since I started doing that, we've gone up to about 10 deals a month on average, closed wholesale deals. And then last month we did about 13. So, it's getting higher and higher as the more people are coming on, as we are growing. as you know, you were at our meetup group. We had about 40 people there. It was when I first started, it was about 70 people that were going. So as it gets bigger, the more I teach people, the more deals we're doing, and we're still consistently growing our direct mail business on our own side, doing our internal marketing with our own company as well.
So from that perspective, you're doing, let's call it 5 deals per month with people who, a few of us have experience. I mean, a few deals are like sort of referrals that filter their way through and that we've closed together, a few months ago. And then a few of those deals got to be like newer people who are coming to the gate. I mean, you must deal with some frustration. I know that I do, because people bring deals to the table that make absolutely no sense. And I'm faced with a challenge, Russell. How do I tell somebody that this deal is junk and it's not going to close and no real cash buyer wants to do it? Yet on the same side, I don't want to insult the person who's bringing the deal to the table. You follow me? Like, you must deal with some of that frustration where some of these deals you can't even send them out to the list because people will look back at you and say, like, what the hell is this, Russell?
Yeah, I do get that on a daily basis. Deals in my inbox where, it would never work. What I do is I teach them, I respond to them and say, hey, this won't work. This is why it won't work. And this is the number it will work at. So next time they don't make that mistake again. And what I do with new investors is I would send them like a video on on how to do the comps and how to make the right offer, so they know next time not to do that again. Some guys, they don't get it after 4 or 5 times, but eventually when they do it over and over again, they start getting the hang of it and getting the right offers out there. Because I get deals all the time where they have 20 grand of equity and they think it's a deal, and there's no money to be made there after holding costs, closing costs, interest to the lenders. They're gonna lose money. So.
And I've actually the challenge gets even more complex, because I hate to say it any other way, but like sometimes there's like some dumb luck and people like step into a pile of crap, or rather a pile of money. And I've seen people have a deal where I'm like, look, this is not going to work. And I'll explain why, and I'll show them. I might send them, I'll pull like comps from the MLS and show them like, here's what cash deals are going for. It'll be, 20, 22, 23,000 might be the example. And they have it for 35,000, and, they get lucky. And here, like, some guy down the block wants to like buy the house for his daughter to live in or something crazy. And then they end up closing this deal that I said was junk. So the challenge is now they're looking at me, Russell, and they're like, man, this guy doesn't know his ass from hole in the ground. I just made 5,000 on this deal, and he said he wasn't even going to close. You know what I mean? So like 1 in 100 junk deals gets lucky and closes like that. So that becomes like the challenge, and now that person's like running off with faulty logic, in another direction, and they swear, because their experience shows them that you can make money doing that. They swear that that's like a viable business model. Whereas, so let's say we got a new investor, Russell. How would you ideally and for everybody that doesn't know, Russell's a Chicago investor. I don't know if we had already mentioned that, but let's say we got a Chicago new investor and they got a deal. Like, what's the typical process that you and the newer investor, how do you guys mesh and how do you work together? Are you having them fill out forms online? Is it strictly email? Like, what's the process for someone new who's just getting started to interact with someone experienced like yourself to get deals closed?
I mean, a lot of people that I'm coaching, I've met one-on-one. We personally, I've been personally training them. So, when they send me a deal, if they have it under contract, what I do is I ask them for the contract, see that it's signed and everything's, signed correctly. And then me and the other wholesaler would sign also like a co-marketing agreement, indicating, what we would pay, indicating what we would pay for, if we made a profit on the deal. And then, after that's signed, everything, we have pictures, lockbox on, we would send it out to our buyers list. If we, once we sold the property, we would split the profits, and typically we split the profits 50-50. If there's another person involved, then it would be 33%. Sometimes I have a lot of realtors that I work with that sell a lot of my properties, so sometimes the realtors will either add on their fee, but if the buyer's at a lower price, we sometimes would have to split it 33%. So that's key. Like, you have to, in this business, you have to be willing to share. You can't, take all the profits And that's what I learned is, the guys that are not willing to share profits and work with others are the ones that get in and out really fast, and you never see them again.
Yeah, and that's important to note too, Russell. I mean, you mentioned, all right, it's 50-50. So, like, I'm just going to, play the devil's advocate. I've had the experience where, I'll say that same verbiage that you just said. We'll work together. You bring the lead. I'll even go out to the living room and negotiate with the seller for you, me or one of my guys. And then when we sell the deal, we'll split the profits. And we'll do a 50-50 split. And then I say, unless there's someone else, and then sometimes it's a 33-33-33. And I can see visually, I can see their face shut down and get disappointed because immediately they're thinking to themselves, there's not a chance in hell that I'm going to go bring a single deal to this person because they said 33-33-33. Or they're jumping up and down and stamping, and they don't understand, well, why do we have to pay this agent? And it's so important for a newer investor, to turn their nose up at that, that disclosure of how not every deal is going to be split exactly the same way. This is not a one-size-fits-all business. Occasionally you're going to run into situations. It's a relationships-driven business, and you're going to run into positions where it's Russell Walker's relationship with Anika Smith, the agent, who happens to have a relationship with this cash buyer who happens to be the guy on the block buying the property for his daughter, that's definitely not going to deal with this new unknown wholesaler who doesn't even have access to 3 relationships down the line. And that buyer's not going to deal directly with Russell because he doesn't know Russell. He knows Anika Smith. And that Anika Smith's not going to deal with the other wholesaler because they just don't know each other either. That's kind of Russell's thing. And Russell's going out to lunch with, this agent years ago. This agent's received thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars in commissions from Russell over the years. And that agent knows where the bread is buttered. It's buttered by, the people who are like instrumental in bringing more deals to the table. So when a newer investor, they don't have access to like the experience. I got 10 years of doing these kind of deals, and I know that those kind of like relationship strings that sometimes happen to get the deal done, those are built over a number of years. And like for the new investor, they don't have that like perspective to see that sometimes, and they getting kind of hung up on like having to split the deal. And basically they like stop their action and they stop the universe from like even delivering that first deal. Sometimes that deal could be $28,000 assignment, a $40,000 assignment, $35,000 assignment. Even by the time you chop it up 3-4 different ways, however many ways it takes to get it done, we're still talking $8,000, $9,000, $10,000. And a lot of times that deal, like, with a $30K assignment, that new wholesaler could go give it to someone directly. But a lot of times there's like some other investor who has more experience in negotiating deals, and they're going to railroad that investor. And they're going to get that investor to sign that contract over to them for like a $4,000 or $5,000 assignment fee, because that newer investor has a limited perspective on the market knowledge, the market characteristics, and even the relationships it takes to get a little more money. So a guy like you or a guy like me, Russell, I know a lot of times we can get a deal done, closed, for more money out of the market than these newer investors. I mean, would you agree with that statement?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I have investors that are semi-experienced that are doing a couple of deals a month, and they just strictly rely on me to sell it because, I can sell it for more money, and, they can close it faster. So, because I have a huge buyer's list, an active buyer's list, and I can negotiate with them to buy at a higher price than what the other wholesaler was expecting. So we basically have that buyer's list that's actively buying here in Chicago and needs, basically have one buyer that's looking for 30 properties a month, and we're trying to feed him as many properties as possible.
30 properties a month, buyer's list that's more powerful than, the MLS in some cases.
Yeah, I mean, I have a buyer's list that's I built over 5-6 years of marketing, and it cost me, thousands of dollars of marketing expenses and time that I put in that I'm basically letting new investors leverage, all that time and knowledge that I put in and relationships that I put in. I'm letting them leverage that to make a profit,
Let's talk about building the buyer's list. I know a couple of things you had shared with me, when we've spoken previously about what you did. Let's talk about some of those action steps, and let's talk about, some of that investment of time and money that's gone into building the buyer's list. I mean, what did you do to get that to where it is now?
When I first started, I went to a lot of REI meetings all over and met investors. And I also went to auctions. Once a month I would head down to the auction and meet investors buying properties cash. A lot of marketing expenses as well. I'd pay per click for, someone Google's Chicago wholesale properties. I'd probably come up first. Direct mail, I've done a lot of direct mail. Every 3 months I would direct mail every cash buyer in Cook County that bought in the last 6 months or so. So a lot of time too. I meet a lot of buyers every week. I meet him at Starbucks or meet him somewhere and we just talk business. What he's looking for, and my goal is to build that relationship with the end buyer and deliver what he wants. And that's been our business model for a while now. Basically, find out what the buyer wants and deliver that product to him.
Now, in your heyday, and when you were anxiously building this, or aggressively would be the better word, aggressively building your buyers list, Russell, how many phone calls would you set a goal to make each day to buyers?
It would be about 15 buyers I would want to add to my buyers list every day. So it would be, calling buyers from Craigslist ads, or even just Googling buyers on Google and calling them up. Basically my goal would be I would need to call 15 buyers today and add them to my buyers list. And that would be like a daily goal I used to do. If I didn't hit that goal, then tomorrow I would say I only got 10 yesterday, so today I need to do 20. So it took a lot of time, a lot of work to build the list, and it was a lot of expenses too as well. So that's what I do, is I leverage that buyer's list with other new investors to basically, make a profit, and they're leveraging everything that I've done to build my business, and we're basically co-wholesaling together.
Here's what I'm hearing. You're telling me, okay, I went to the REI network groups, I went to the auctions once a month, I'm handing out cards, I'm sitting at Starbucks, and, doing pay-per-click, so I'm spending $500,000 a month just to attract buyers, And every 3 months I'm sending to cash buyers, we're talking thousands and thousands of letters in Cook County. Chicago area is like a very huge city. So there's got to be like an abundance of calls coming back from all this different stuff, all this activity. And I'm hearing to myself, man, this is a lot of manual labor, and this is a lot of expense, both in time and money, to generate this asset of the buyer's list. And then, on the flip side, a lot of people get into the business, right, and, they whack up a deal with Russell, or they whack up a deal with Diamond Equity Investments, and they're thinking man, that was $15,000 assignment fee, and I only got $7,500, and so I've noticed a little bit of a buyer's remorse happen after the, you know what I mean? And then the people are avidly trying to build their buyer's list. And what I notice happens for a lot of those people is, they do that one deal and then change the focus of their business to buyers from sellers. They think, man, if I just had the buyers, I'd control it all. And part of the issue and the challenge is that, for me, I've always had, I did the same things that you did, Russell. I would go out to Starbucks and I'd try to have lunch with buyers. And, I did that, but there was a certain limit on my time doing it that way. And I found it was more effective for me to meet buyers when I had property for sale. So I switched my focus and said, okay, I'm going to strictly see about, doing deals and having opportunities available, for sale. And then I have an address to talk about with the buyer. And it's more easy. So for me, I like to keep the focus on the seller side as opposed to the buyer side, and let my, seller side inventory. So if I'm doing a lot of deals in a certain section of the city, I'm generating leads for buyers in that section of the city where I happen to be getting a lot of response, from my business. So I guess where I'm going with this tangent a little bit is we're talking about how exactly we go about buying a buyer's list, Russell. But for someone that was just listening in on the call and they're new, would you suggest that they follow that same step, or would you suggest that there would be focus on another area of the business that might be more important for somebody who's still working a full-time job trying to get out and do real estate full-time?
Well, when I started in real estate, it was more of, you needed to find the buyer because the market was down. You needed to find the buyer first. Today, it's more of, if you got a deal, the buyers will come. So today, I would say focus on finding the deals first, and then the buyers will come, because, it's a hot market. It's appreciating. There's a lot of new investors getting into the business. So if you find the deals first today, then you're definitely ahead. I would say find the deals first today, and then the buyers will come. But back in '08 to like 2010, 11, it was find the buyer first, and then find the deal. So that's the difference today than a few years ago.
A little bit about my story. I had a pretty, for my age and for my experience level, I had a tremendous amount of success, which I felt like it was at an early age for me in my life, and it came very fast for me in real estate. And that was from 2006 to about 2009, and then I sort of, let the business models fall apart, didn't really pay attention, didn't have the breadth of experience in my professional and personal life at the time, and things kind of deteriorated, and, I was humbled by the market. And then, by the time 2011, 12, and 13 started coming around, I started to ramp up my volume again, and I was a little bit of a newer person, and it's in that same type of market where you were talking about, where you had to go find the buyers first. And I'm good at, generating leads and finding deals. I invest heavily in, marketing to sellers. And I had somebody in the Philadelphia market, Josh Hertz, who actually was another guest on our show here. And Josh, at the time, found me, sort of offered what you were offering to the new people, and the same thing I offer. And that's access to the buyer's list and, access to the market knowledge and a little bit of coaching to get the deals done. And Josh pretty much made it easy for me. He had a lot of buyer relationships in a lot of different neighborhoods in the city of Philadelphia that I didn't have at the time. I have built those up over since those, 4 years or so. It made it easy for me. And I imagine it would be the same way that one of the new investors listening in, whether it's, one of my Philadelphia listeners, one of your Chicago listeners, because of the stuff we build up, it's like it's an easy thing. All they have to do is feed this machine, sell the leads, and they have the opportunity to be in the business relatively easy instead of having to switch gears. Okay, get the deal under contract, then switch gears, and now I'm into marketing the deal and talking to buyers. Well, while I'm doing all that, I stopped marketing, I stopped putting a focus on the sellers, and by the time my deal goes to settlement, it's like I have to start the machine all over again. Does that make sense? It's it's easier almost to, for me it was definitely easier, focus on the seller side, and then I kind of referred him to this other guy, for a while, and he was getting the deals closed. I mean, would you kind of almost suggest that for certain people? I know, we kind of taking it with a grain of salt, the people listening, because we have a vested interest in them bringing the deals again. But, the reality of it and the truth of it is when I see people focus on the seller lead side, these are the guys that are coming into my office at Diamond Equity Investments in Philadelphia, and their focus is on sellers all day, and they do have to run out on some buyer leads and, sort of work that into the business. But once they master that, focusing on the seller side, on the origination side, that's when I see people make consistent money in real estate, as opposed to trying to do everything or get distracted by the buyer side. Make it easy and just focus on that side. I mean, would you kind of agree, or would you have a little bit of different advice for somebody listening in who's, closed the deal or two?
In today's market, you can make a great living off of just focusing on sellers anywhere. I know guys virtually wholesaling 7, 8 different markets, and that's all they do is focus on sellers. They find one of the top wholesalers in the market, and they feed them the deals, and they sell it because they know that this wholesaler is going to sell it probably at a higher price, and they can sell it and sell it faster than they can sell it. So they get paid more and they get paid faster. So, today's market, definitely focus on the sellers, focus on generating the deals, and this is the way to get paid in this market. If it does become a down market, then it turns around and you want to say focus on the buyers, because a lot of buyers will be getting out and there'll be new buyers getting in, and you want to focus on what the buyers are buying and then find the deal. But today, definitely focus on the sellers. If you have the deal, you're going to make the money.
That's interesting. That the top wholesalers focus on the sellers and then find, the power wholesalers in the market and have them blow out the deals for them and split, the fees. That's an interesting observation there.
I am looking into different markets now too, as far as Indiana, Wisconsin, and I've been talking to quite a few wholesalers to get started in those markets as well. So that's something I'm looking to actively pursue as far as co-wholesaling with other wholesalers in the market already. If I did start over everything in Indianapolis, that's going to take me another couple of years to build that buyers list I have here in Chicago. When there's someone there already that has that list that I can just go to and find the deal and just send it to them. And it's better to get paid in a couple weeks than a couple months. So they can sell a lot faster than I could because they already have that established list.
I think we should switch gears a little bit. And I know that you, just like me, do this mentoring, this one-on-one. I mean, can you talk about so you're giving all this knowledge, and it's kind of like a give and receive. Let's talk about the power of giving a little bit.
Yeah, I'm a Christian, and I believe in the power of giving, tithing, giving of my time, giving of my knowledge. It wasn't ever since I started doing that until my business actually picked off. So the more knowledge and time I give, I've noticed that the more money I make. And a funny story is my first wholesale deal took me about 6 months to do, and I was doing consistent marketing, doing 1,000 mailers a month, calling, making about 15, 20 offers a day for 6 months straight. And I didn't get my deal until it was like the day after Christmas was my first wholesale deal. I made about $18,000. And that Christmas I gave more than, I bought more presents, gave more to church that week than any other time in my life. So that's when everything clicked. And I was like, the more I give as far as tithing and give to others and help others, the more money I'm going to make. And that has been a principle in my business ever since then that happened. So that's why I do the meetup groups. That's why I do the mentoring and everything, is I believe the more I give to others as far as knowledge and value, the more I will make, the more people I can help make a lot of money, the more you're going to make as well. So
yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. It's like, money, time, knowledge. It's almost like a seed, right? I plant the seed of, a little bit of a 20-minute phone call, an hour-long meeting at Starbucks with somebody. Maybe they have not a whole lot going on. I mean, I've met at Dunkin' Donuts with people who literally hopped off the bus and met me there,
Right.
And it's like, I'm not expecting from every single relationship or every single seed that's planting, I'm not like standing around and harassing them for like a harvest, but like in nature too, Russell, you plant a few thousand seeds, and there's a return. Sometimes, the seed falls on the rocky ground and doesn't grow up, and sometimes the bird of the air snatches the seed and takes it away, and there's nothing there either. The bird of doubt could be with the newer investor, the family member saying, there's no way you can get in real estate. You have no money, right? Even though Russell or Dan Breslin sat down and planted the seed of inspiration and I'll tell them how, like, I had to get a ride to my first deal, Russell. I had, like, my dad waiting out in the truck, like, while we went to this deal because I didn't even have a car at the time. And people will hear that and they'll get that belief in their heart and say, oh, wow, I can do this too. This is like, I'm so inspired, they're on fire. But then the bird of the air, metaphorically comes and snatches it away, and their family says, no, there's no way you can do that. You work down at Walgreens. Like, what are you thinking? You're going to go out and do real estate. You make $10 an hour. There's no way you can, suddenly you're going to jump to making $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 in a month. Like, what are you thinking? And they're like, pay attention to that doubt. And then a few of the people, just like the seed in nature, get that in their heart, and they hear that inspiration at our meetups, they're listening to this podcast right now, and they get, oh, wow, I can do this. This is great. I can get into this business. I'll check out Russell's videos. I'll read Dan's books. I can do this, even in other parts of the country where you and I are not even active. And they get that, and it's like the seed falling into the ground that's like, fresh-watered, fertile soil. And that one grain of seed turns into like 100-fold harvest, 100 times the seed that was planted. My first deal, Russell, it was like I kind of almost treat my marketing in the same way as the seed or the tithe or giving. It's like, I got no promise of return. I don't know what nature's going to do with the seeds I plant. There's times I've given, 300 or, I forget what the amount was. I gave a certain amount of money. And literally, like, on a deal, like 7 or 8 days later, an unexpected deal literally was 100 times this amount that I donated to charity. And I'll be honest, Russell, at the time it was like it was like 50% of the money that I had to my name that I gave to this charity, and like 100 times that amount came back in this deal, almost unexpected. And like even my first deal, it was like a $60, advertising seed that I could afford an ad for 7 days. I was down to like my last couple of bucks, and it was like a $6,000 assignment on that first deal. So it was literally 100 times, my initial investment came back. So for me, I like to view that the same way. I give up my knowledge a little bit. Some of the relationships turn into, abundant relationships, and things just like go on forever. Sometimes people take the knowledge, they go off and they close a couple deals on their own, and like, that's just nature. Some other people are not necessarily going to make the harvest for me, but, you're given that, not almost with the expectation, but more with like the knowledge that, the return comes when you plant that seed of a gift in the universe.
Right. Yeah. You elaborated it a lot better than I could. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Like, I tell everyone that I teach as well, there's a lot of people are in the business that are trying to get their first wholesale deal. And, I tell them, are you giving? Are you tithing? Are you, giving of your time? Or if you don't have money, are you giving of your time or giving of your knowledge? Because, it's a universal law of success. You have to give in order to get. You're not giving anything, you're just taking, then you're not going to be successful. You're not going to get your first deal. It's a principle that I've followed and I teach others to follow. And I can't tell you how many times that where I would give a significant amount to another person or to church, and then a month later, I would get that back twofold. And it's just very powerful thing to do in your life is, and I test everyone. I'm like, do it and see what happens in the next 3 months. Give of your money that you have, give of your time. And they, a lot of the people that I teach come back and say, wow, it changed their life. And now they're doing that on a daily basis, trying to find places where they can give. If you don't have money, why don't you just give of your time to other people, or help at a non-for-profit company, volunteer your time. So yeah, it's a powerful thing. I suggest everyone should incorporate in their life.
Yeah, it's funny. They talk about the gifts or the talents. Literally, the words were talents, which was like a meaning, a parable in the Bible. They talk about the guy, is given 1 talent, he buries it. The next guy's given 2 talents, he turns it into 4. The next guy's given 4 talents, turns it into 8. They double it, right? God comes back and admonishes, the master comes back and admonishes the guy who buried his talent. He hid his talent. And in the Bible, they were talking about talents of gold. It was like a measure of weight. But ironically, the word talent in today's, context, we could be talking about like a talent for real estate, or a talent for singing, or a talent for acting, or a talent for management of people. Whatever, the universe, God has given you as a gift, as your talents, right? If you utilize those talents and turn them into more by developing your talent with knowledge, practice, actually using it, giving it away, sharing that talent with other people, it's like the universe or God will reward you with an additional talent, for each one that you've kind of like made double. So it's like, it's literally like right out of the Bible, and then the guy who takes the 1 talent and he's like, yeah, I know how to wholesale deals, right? And he like wholesale 1 deal, right. And then he just talks about like, yeah, I know how to wholesale deals. Like, I know how to do this. And like a guy like you or me will be having like a conversation with him. He'll be like, yeah, I know how to do it, man. I did this 1 deal, in like 2010. If he's even still coming around, like I did, I know how to do it. And like knowing how to do it and doing it on a consistent basis is the difference between like burying the talent in the ground and multiplying the talent in the universe by like using it to do a greater good, right?
Right.
I don't know. I like to think of this purpose, Russell. I like to think of like the purpose. So I fix and flip houses. You fix and flip houses. You do some rental property. I am working as fast as I can to get myself out of the rental business in one fashion. And then I have another rental business we're starting up now. We do like recovery houses for drug addicts and alcoholics who come home from rehab. So we're focused on any property we hold being, of that nature, of a different nature with the group home business. But where I was going with that was we have kind of a purpose with our real estate investing. So like as a wholesaler, right, like my original purpose was to make the universe, make creation a more beautiful place by fixing up, renovating, taking a risk, investing capital to take a property that's typically vacant or abandoned or just in really bad disrepair, the situation, whatever it was, and turning it into something that a family is proud to own when they move in. And I don't care if it's like, Southside Chicago property. My first deal that I flipped was a Chester, Pennsylvania deal, so people, from that area would know, these are not like upper class neighborhoods, right? That was like my first deal, whether it's there or in a better or higher priced neighborhood, I should say. The function of a wholesaler, right, is to like find these opportunities, and like you're supposed to be a professional that's guiding the negotiation. You're doing the marketing, you're making investments to like generate the leads, and you're guiding this seller through the process of, coming to terms on a reasonable and realistic price that another cash buyer can then come to the table, pay you a fair assignment fee for doing your work and having your function, and then the investor can like continue that purpose that you started. You planted the seed, and you're moving that deal through the process to the investor who takes the risk. And sometimes that's you, sometimes that's me, Russell. We're buying the properties ourselves now and then fixing them up, and then we turn around and either rent them to a family who's going to celebrate holidays in that property, or, maybe sell them to a family or a single person or whatever the case may be, an end user who's going to live in that property and call it their home, or maybe even that's another investor who's renting it out. But our function as investors is to like carry this inventory, this like stuff that needs repair, that belongs in the cash sale market, like through the process to the next, the next phase of where that property, where that house should be, right?
Right.
So I think it's important for people to realize that's the purpose and make it a point, like, if you're new, you've done a deal or two, redefine it in your mind and like run with that new purpose and do that, right? Because then you're looking at the deals as a cash buyer, and your goal is not, I see a lot of wholesalers out there, their goal is to get a $5,000 assignment fee. Their goal is to make $20,000. Their goal is not to, carry out the purpose of real estate investors and provide inventory for other investors and provide a service. Their goal is something different. It's all about the money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's all about themselves, and all they think about is how much they can make. They have to think about how you can help the investor. You're helping the investor make money. So if the investor's making money, you're going to make money. So you have to you think of how can I help this person make money, not yourself make money, but the other person that you're helping. If you're going to help him make money, then in return you're going to make money as well.
And at the same time, they're helping a seller get through a situation. I mean, if a seller, Russell, is in an unrealistic state of mind as far as the property, say we have a property that needs to sell for $35,000, and this seller is stuck on $90,000. It's not in reality. If this person is not communicated to properly, this unrealistically priced seller who believes their house is worth $90,000, is living in a false reality. If nobody ever talks to that person and communicates logically and with integrity as far as to how much that property really, needs to sell for, needs to change hands for, and basically gets that person to bring that property through the process, that property remains a vacant property at that $35,000 property stays vacant. It stays unrepaired. Right. It stays with tax bills coming in. A lot of people may not have the money to cover it. If they have the money to cover it and they want to hold it forever, that's a different story. But a lot of people don't have the money to pay the taxes. They don't have the money to take care of code violations. The situation is going to continue to deteriorate and get worse, until, they may not even have property insurance. I've seen people with no insurance, the house burns down. They wish they sold it for $35,000 when they could have. Now it's worth $3,000. So they're helping that seller by doing a proper job, negotiating, presenting the information, making a legitimate offer where that investor can make a profit on it, and carrying through the title process. These are things wholesalers do to serve the seller at the same time as presenting inventory for the investor. So it's like, if you can remember that you're doing good in every situation, I think that, you'll be much better off for success.
Yeah, a lot of investors that get into it are, they think that we're taking advantage of other people, and a lot of people don't get into it because of that. And then, you explained it perfectly. If the seller is trying to sell it for way too high, it's going to stay vacant. The property values in the neighborhood will stay down because that property isn't being rehabbed and isn't going to sell for a higher value, and the neighbors' houses aren't going to be worth more because, you know, that house is still vacant because the seller is not moving down on the price. No investor is going to go in there and buy it and rehab it and make it livable because it's too high, and they're not going to make any return on their money. So, yeah, definitely you're helping both seller and the buyer, and you're making the community and neighborhood a better place. So that's the way all wholesalers have to look at it. Is that's how they're helping the buyer, the seller, the neighborhood. Basically, you're the one that starts the deal. You're the one that presents the deal as a rehab as a viable investment. So you're the one that's helping the buyer make money, helping the seller get rid of their house, and helping the neighborhood values increase.
Cool. So you make this statement. You made a statement to me the other night. It's ringing out in my mind. You said, "Don't make other people rich. Make yourself rich." Can you elaborate on that for me?
Right. Like, you work a full-time job, 8 to 5, 9 to 5, and you're making your boss rich. You're not making yourself rich. And you come home, you watch basketball, you watch football all night, or you watch your favorite TV show. You're making, the athletes rich. You're making the actors rich. Are you helping yourself get rich? You gotta look at what you do throughout the entire day. When I teach people wholesale, I teach them you gotta build your database. The bigger your database, the more money you're gonna make. You have to build 2 databases, sellers and buyers. So daily, instead of, watching basketball all night or watching your favorite TV shows all night, you should be building 10 buyers a day, build 10 seller leads a day, put them in your database, make 10 offers a day. So how I teach people to look at seller leads is the more seller leads you have to follow up with, the more money you're going to make. So if you have 20,000 leads you're going to follow up with this month, you're going to make more money than someone that has 500 leads. So all investors that I teach them, make the offer. You're probably not going to get it on the first try. Put them in the follow-up system, and eventually, maybe on the 7th, 8th month you talk to them, they're going to want to sell. And the bigger that follow-up list you create, the more money you're going to make. So I teach them, turn off the TV and create 10 seller leads a day or create 10 buyer leads a day. And the bigger you have that database of leads to follow up with, the more money you're going to make. That's how most of our deals that we get under contract today is just from old seller lead follow-ups. I can literally stop marketing for new leads today and still do 10 deals a month because I have such a huge follow-up list that I have to hit every day that we just get contracts from old leads from even years ago. And that's important. Follow-up is probably the main thing that separates the investor that's going to make all the money versus someone that, just get in and out of the business.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, every once in a while, someone is right in the ballpark and they're asking a realistic amount of money, and you can go out and, tie down a deal and make a fair deal right on the spot. But then you got so many others, like, the example that I was using, they think it's worth $90,000, you need it for $35,000. And you offer 30 to allow yourself a little room to go up, and they're like, they're just not having it. And I know it's been my own experience in the past that I just wouldn't follow up. I'd be like, oh no, they just, they just said that wasn't going to go. And then eventually I learned that, sometimes I'd call them back, and the next thing you know, they're like, yeah, well, if you could do 40, we could do the deal. Well, wait a minute, 40, I offered 30. I mean, we split the difference, and we're at 35 where we need to be,
Right.
So that's key. And I guess you bring up a few good points, right? So I'm not going to watch basketball. I'm not going to, I'm going to skip watching the football game on Sunday, and I'm going to do some activities to build my own business because, if I'm not going to make other people rich, I'm not working at, the car dealership, 60 hours a week to make the owner of the dealership rich. So I got to have my own business and my own dealership. And I start to think of myself as a business owner. What activities would you say are a priority, Russell, for someone who's, just starting in the business? Maybe you've done 1, 2 deals. What would be like, the high value activities that Russell Walker had done on a regular basis, day by day, when you were skipping the basketball games to get to where you're at? I mean, if we could give a list, let's say of the top 3 or 4 or even 2, however many you say it is, what would be the list of activities that someone should be like consistently hammering on a regular basis?
The top, I would say the top are marketing for sellers, making offers to sellers, marketing for buyers, and selling your properties. That'll be, if you're not doing, those should be the main things you're doing daily, and you should have a goal. Today I want to make 10 offers to sellers, and I'm going to talk to 5 new buyers and put them on my list. Those, I would say, are the top 4 that you should be doing daily basis in order to make money as fast as possible. Most investors, all they do is they create the perfect website, they create the perfect business card, they create the perfect LLC, and they set up their operating agreement, and that's all they're focusing on every day. And then they're learning. They're not doing anything. They're just learning about this strategy. So you have to focus. What's going to make you money? What's going to make you money is talking to sellers, making offers, marketing for buyers, selling your properties. That's it. That's all the business is about, making offers. The key is follow up. You have to make offers. They don't want it. Follow up. And we follow up until the deal's sold, or they are belligerent and they want us off the list. They want to be off the list. And we have follow-ups from 3 years ago still. We're still talking to them. So you should always follow up until the deal is dead, And same thing with buyers. Buyers that you talk to, you want to also always follow up with them. Say, hey, what you're looking for. I know we talked, a month ago about a property. You should always follow up with them and see how they're doing. See what, if they're buying any properties, where they're buying at as well. So the key is follow up with buyers as well too.
Yeah, and I'm inclined to agree exactly with the order that you had mentioned. Those: marketing for sellers, making offers and following up the sellers. Number 3, marketing for buyers. And number 4, selling properties. I'm inclined to agree exactly with that order of priority as well. I like to say follow up not just until they're sold, but until the deal's actually settled, because a lot of people will tie up their property with some bozo at some astronomical number that just won't work. And the seller says, oh, yeah, we sold it. We sold it last week. And the wholesaler's like, oh, okay. And they take their number off the list. Then I look in public records like 4 months later, and it's still in that original seller's name. Like, they sold it, but they didn't go to settlement yet. There's 2 totally different events, right, one of which being permanent and the other not.
Right. That's a good point. You should ask them, did it close, and did it close yet? Because a lot of them would just have it under contract and just say, oh, yeah, we sold it already, but it hasn't closed. And a lot of times we get a lot of deals like that where, it would be under contract and we'd follow up and they say, oh, the buyer never came through. Do you still want the deal? And we get, I can't tell you how many deals I closed just like that, we followed up with them after they said they have it under contract or sold it to another buyer. But yeah, that is a really key point. Don't ever stop following up until it's actually sold, not under contract.
Yeah, settled. Sold and settled.
Settled, yeah.
You also point out, too, like, you named off the procrastination, right? Like, people get into business and they want to do the easy work. Like, all right, I'm in business and I'm excited, and I go to Vistaprint. Now I'm designing my business cards, and I'm thinking of the coolest name I could ever think of, and I'm buying websites. And now, me personally, all of a sudden I'm doing web design, and this is going on for a long time. And the reality was, I noticed that I was procrastinating the inevitable, which was getting on the phone and talking to real live sellers. I mean, it was bad, Russell, to the point where, like, I remember, I went to an expensive training company when I first got into the company or into the business, and they told us, go knock on doors of people that were in foreclosure. Go knock on the door, and they're like, sometimes people are going to slam the door in your face, and sometimes. And they went through all these scenarios, and we're like, oh, man. So we're, like, driving down the street, and it was with my dad. And we pull up in front of this house, and we're, like, working up the nerve to go knock on this seller's door, right? We're kind of, like, seeing who's going to knock, and we're sort of drawing straws. We're procrastinating. the inevitable, which we go knock on the door. And the next thing you know, we see this, like, this, like, downtrodden guy. He was, like, dirty. He looked like he was, like, out back, like, committing a serial murder or something, and like he had something in his hand that like resembled a head. We're like, oh my God, there he is. And we like drive off, right? And we're like laughing. The guy didn't have a head. He was like changing the brakes on his car or something. But we had to like, we had like the seller, like this big, like demonized thing, like that we were like afraid to talk to. And I know because I've witnessed some newer sellers talk about, the same thing. Like they're doing everything in the world to like distract themselves from having to talk to real sellers. And it's like, I don't know. I suggest to all my new people, Russell, I say, listen, get on Craigslist, take this, I give them like a call sheet with a little script. Here, take this call sheet, get on Craigslist and call 25 sellers and just have a conversation with them. If you can get through 25, it'll be a lot easier when you pay for leads or you put bandit signs up for leads or you spend money on letters to return the call and then like talk about them live. You'll be practiced and you'll be in flow. It's kind of like the wax on, wax off thing, like Mr. Miyagi.
Right.
Like, why the hell am I calling these sellers? None of them they're all junk. Well, you're learning the right answers. You're figuring out why they need to sell. You're going to start to, gain the skill of being able to tell whether it's a deal you should go out and look for. I mean, do you have any suggestions for like new people as far as like how to get over that and just dive right into the marketing for sellers or talking with sellers thing?
That is an awesome strategy. Get them to call for sale by owners. That way, they're not scared when they actually pay for leads and the leads come in and they already know what to say, how to talk to them. So yeah, that's an awesome strategy to do that. I teach them pretty much the same. Go on Craigslist, go on Zillow for rent, for sale, and call up 20 leads a day, make 20 offers a day. And once you get a hang of it, you're going to start, seeing, like I teach, you're going to start seeing the bullets before they fly because you're going to know how they're going to respond to your questions and you know how to react to them. So it's just like riding a bicycle. You can read about it, you can read all you want about it, but you're not going to actually learn it until you actually get on the bike and ride it.
Now, how did you get your start in the business? Were you like me? Luckily, my dad had pulled the trigger and sent me away with another guy we met at the seminar on like $13,000-$14,000 worth of, training on the initial one. And I'll drop $2,000-$3,000 like almost at the drop of a hat, even to this day, to go to like business conferences, marketing, real estate conferences. Like, I'm still continuous believer in investing in my education and finding education for free or paying for education. I mean, was your path strictly, the free route, or did you kind of find some mentors and things of that nature? I mean, what would be like your feeling on that, Russell?
I did spend a lot of money on different courses, like, a couple thousand here and there, probably 20, 30 courses over the course of my time. So there's a couple like gurus that I follow that I feel are legitimate that have basically, I would say, coached me and mentored me over time. So yeah, I did have a coach that mentored me. And I would say, if you're getting into the business, there's just so many strategies that you can do, so many gurus out there that are teaching so many different strategies that, stick to one or two people and just focus on them and just, I would look them up to see if they're legitimate. If they are, they're really doing deals, then I would just focus on one or two, and that's it. You got so many new people that have like 20 different gurus and they don't know what to do because there's this guy's telling them to do this, but don't do, and then another guy's telling them don't do that, So you have to focus on, if you're going to get into business, follow somebody that's already doing business, follow someone that's already doing a lot of deals and copy them, just copy what they do. They tell you to do this, do it this way. If someone tells you otherwise, don't listen to them. Listen to that one guru or mentor that told you to do it this way because it's working for him. It's just too many gurus out there teaching too many different things that, it's confusing new investors. I was like that too. I bought 20, 30 courses and, I wanted to know every single strategy. So every lead that came in, I wanted to do a short sale or do a rent to own or owner finance. So, I fell in that same trap where I needed to know everything before I started. So, and it took me a couple of years to get actually into wholesaling. I knew about it, learned about it, and I actually didn't do until like a year and a half of learning wholesaling. But at the same time, I was still rehabbing and fixing and flipping. But yeah, that's important. Is you got to follow one or two guys and just close the blinders, unsubscribe to all the gurus' emails, and just focus on those two guys and copy what they do. It's simple. Don't complicate it.
Yeah, and I think you really shared something profound yet so simple that most people would almost totally miss the point. And you said to check the mentor out and see if they have the result. So, if this guy's teaching wholesaling, he better damn well be doing wholesale deals every month. If the guy's fixing and flipping
Right.
houses and he's, selling you on doing that, he better be doing, fixing and flipping houses. If the guy's selling you a one-size-fits-all package on how to do every single type of deal with rent-to-own and, seller financing and like the whole gamut, yet the guy is spending all of his time on the road selling his packages, that may not necessarily be the true reality if this guy gives you solid information.
Right.
So that's key, and I think another thing too I'd like to share on a mentor before we kind of move on from that subject is, Russell, and I'm sure you'd agree, if you can find somebody local in the market who's doing the thing that you want to do, and that person is, willing to share their time, share their knowledge, allow you to partner on deals, even give you insights on deals you're working, I think that is like head and shoulders way more powerful than like any of the national gurus, who are like in California giving you coaching. Like the little niche in Chicago or the niche in Florida or the niche markets have their own little variety of nuances, which, somebody who's actually doing deals there would be more aware of than somebody who's not. I mean, I'm
Right.
guessing you would agree with me. If you got somebody local who's doing stuff and who's willing to, share with you, then I think that's, that's the person you kind of want to trust and follow everything.
Yeah, that's head and shoulders above it all because, I learned from a coach in Phoenix, Arizona, and a lot of things that he teaches, you can't, there's no way to teach it here in Chicago because for example, there's villages here in Chicago, you can't double close a deal because the city will not allow it. So, I have experience on what villages those are, and how to get around it. And we still are able to wholesale deals in those cities. It's just that I didn't know that going into it when I first got a deal there and I couldn't wholesale it. So, I lost some earnest money, but that's a key point that a local person knows the laws and the little nuances in that location that a national guru will not be able to tell you. And that is key. Someone local actually doing deals, and I would actually check them out and see, just ask them, what deals have you closed? You have an address? And I actually could provide that. I say, here are the 10 addresses I just closed last month. I'll email it to them. So, I would ask them, addresses they close, because a lot of gurus will fake it and say, I do 30 deals a month, and they haven't done anything. All they do is sell education. You want to definitely check them out, maybe talk to other people that he's mentoring and see how that coach is, for sure.
Yeah, and one word of warning, too, is like not everybody is going to be open and giving. Not everybody wants to talk with new investors. Not everybody wants to help out the new guy. So, if you run into somebody like that in your market, you don't want to continue to like push and try to bully your way into a relationship. Make sure you keep meeting people until you kind of find the right persons, because, the mentor relationship is a two-way street. There's action required by both the student and by the mentor. And, if either one of those parties is not holding up their end of the relationship, then it's just not effective or fair for either party to continue. You got mentors that may not have the time or the willingness to look at the deals or the potential opportunities, or, may not have the right set of knowledge. If there's like a newer wholesaler student who's approaching a fix and flip investor and they're talking two different languages, the fix and flip investor or the wholesaler may not even realize that they're not meant to be kind of helping each other out, because they're kind of in two different worlds. So you definitely want to make sure that the mentor is doing the type of business you want to do. And then, is the mentor giving you the time of day when it comes to that you're bringing a time-sensitive opportunity of a seller, with a property that you feel is going to be a solid deal? I mean, can you get, comparable sales from them? Can you get an offer range in a reasonable amount of time? Can you get some insights on the negotiation relatively quickly? You know, can you get them to come out and take a look at the property with you? I mean, these are all going to be like, you know, important little measurements. And if you're not getting it from that person, you know, you may be kind of trying to have a relationship with the wrong person. And when I say that, I'm kind of saying from a perspective too, Russell, for those listening, you know, not everyone's going to like label themselves as a mentor and say like, hey, I'm mentoring people, right? Sometimes it's just someone who's in the market who says, hey, I'm willing to do deals with people, or they just are doing a great number of deals, and you kind of approach them and you sort of ask them for some insight, and it's not necessarily like a defined, I'm your mentor, I'm your student kind of relationship. Sometimes it just happens to be the guy answers the phone, you know, you got a cell phone number, you're not calling him 50 times a day, you're respecting his time, you know, vice versa. So sometimes it's like a loosely defined relationship, but you might consider it as your mentor, although you may not have to like literally go sit down and, you know, ask the guy to be your mentor. That's the way I like to look at it, is as I'm not, I don't want to be like a guru or someone selling programs. I want to just partner on deals and do more deals, and that's my goal in my whole meetup group I have is I just want to partner on deals, teach you wholesaling, even get you into rehabbing. And I have my students where I get them in contact with contractors, get them in contact with hard money lenders that will fund the deals. And a lot of people that I met at my meetup group have bought rehabs from me too. So, you know, I want to get people in rehabs where they're going to make money and come back and do it again and again and again. And I look at that as a partnership, not as I'm the guru and you're my student. I just don't want to be, you know, every time someone tells me that, I'm like, no, we're just partners. I'm not your mentor. So I just like I don't like the guru label. That's all. Because I went through a lot of them, and a lot of them are just in there just to sell education. They don't do any deals. Yeah, not quite defining the relationship. Just, you know, realizing that may be your mentor. You may consider. I mean, I'll be honest, Russell. I have, you know, John Rockefeller is one of my mentors. So how the hell John Rockefeller? He's been dead for, well, like the way I'll define and I'll like identify my mentors are like people of great success whose thinking, whose way of operation, whose business models, whose belief systems that I want to emulate in my own life. I respect them for one reason or another. They could be spiritual mentors, you know, like Jesus, or they could be, you know, business mentors, or, you know, some other kind of life coach. Maybe I just like the way certain, you know, actor lives their life. And, you know, as a result of that, I decided I'm going to work out and I'm going to go into, you know, healthier eating because I view them as a mentor in that area of my life. But I'm not like, you know, I'm not like a crazy person, like trying to chase this person down or, you know, dig up a dead body from the grave to have the person mentor me. But I find a lot of times, like, I can gain aspects of the person's thought process, their vocabulary, their way of doing business or their way of life from reading things they've written, listening to interviews of people who I consider my mentors. So, like, you know, when I follow one or two mentors, the way you're giving me suggestions, that would be like in one specific area of my life. But I may have, you know, in my own mind, I have like a variety of mentors or, you know, role models, I guess I kind of. You have a mentor for, you know, physical, like weight training, a mentor for real estate, for wholesale, and a different mentor for rehabbing, one for buying a home. You know, so, you know, different mentors for every aspect of your life, pretty much, you know. Exactly. And then just, I guess a part of it, the challenge too you described would be like, I got to watch that, right? So I got to watch, I don't have like too many people and I'm trying to implement too many different systems into one thing. I mean, as you were describing that a minute ago, I'm thinking, yeah, I kind of have a tendency to do that a little bit myself. I have like one of my goals is to build new construction, and I bought a course. And to be honest, I haven't even had the time to get all the way through the course for the new construction because I'm busy with, you know, Philadelphia, Tampa, and Florida. Yeah, Philadelphia, Tampa, and Chicago real estate deals, you know, so it's like. Yeah, I can't tell you how many courses are just sitting there that I haven't even looked at yet. You know? Good, I don't feel so bad. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Man, I feel like we could just go on for another hour or two. Maybe I'll have you come on, you know, I'll have a come back on a future show and we can dive even deeper into some of the business models. So we're kind of approaching the top of the hour, or we're past the top of the hour. Okay. So I have a couple of questions here. I like to ask my listeners because I'm an avid reader, and like I was saying with the mentors, I find so much knowledge, so many nuggets of golden wisdom that I've mined through my library, which is probably one of my most valuable assets beside like my time, my health, my family. You know, those obvious things would be like my library of books. So I like to ask all these people, because I get so many brilliant people on these calls, if you have any book recommendations for me and the listeners.
Yeah, definitely. I am a big follower of Eric Thomas, who's like the motivational speaker. I recommend reading his books. Basically, he'll change your mindset, just reading his stuff over the course of a couple months and listening to his YouTube videos and everything like that. He's definitely someone that can change your mindset from thinking, oh, I can only earn $50,000 a year for the rest of my life, to why can't I earn $5 million a year, or why can't I earn $500,000 a year? Definitely someone I recommend to read his books and recommend to listen to all his YouTube videos. He changed my mindset, so I consider him a mentor of how he changed the way I think and the way I act and the way I do business. So I highly suggest people go ahead and you can just YouTube him, watch his videos, and he has books that I've read that I recommend everyone should read as well.
Eric Thomas?
Yeah, Eric Thomas, yeah.
Looking forward to checking that out. Do you have any specific titles of books on that one?
One, it's called Greatness is Upon You, Laying the Foundation. It's the most recent one I read. I know everyone's read it before, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Obviously, that will also help me change the way I think as well. I think everyone that's in real estate probably read that book already, so that's definitely a great read if no one's read it before.
Yeah, that was the first for me in the past.
That got me started in the whole thing, so I would definitely have to refer that book for sure.
Sweet. Robert Kiyosaki, in case anybody hasn't heard of that yet.
Yeah.
So the final question I have for you, Russell, here as we wrap up. You can answer this question two ways. First, for the investor just getting started, and second, for the seasoned investor. Do you have any final jewels of wisdom to share with our listeners?
Yeah, for the newer investors, I would say focus on, learning from maybe one or two gurus and that you believe and you trust, and then just focus on everything they say, because if you are going around listening to 20 different people, you're going to have you're going to get confused on what to do because they're telling you different things. And, you also focus on the things that are important that are going to make you money that we talked about earlier: marketing for sellers, making offers, marketing for buyers, selling your properties. Anything other than that, you should be just treating it secondary and doing it maybe late at night where, like maybe 10, 11 at night where you shouldn't be calling anybody. For example, you should be maybe making your business card late at night or making your website. But during the day, you should be talking to sellers, making your 10 offers a day, and building that database of seller leads that you need to follow up with every week, because that's what's going to make you the most money. The bigger the database of follow-up leads you have, the more money you're going to make. You should be focusing on making offers, marketing for sellers, and talking to buyers as well, creating a database of buyers to go to sell your properties. And every day you should make a goal of, I'm going to talk to 10 buyers today and put them in my buyers list, so any deal I get, I'll send to them. I would say for the more seasoned investors, I would say, if you're doing maybe you're doing 3 deals a month and you're overwhelmed and you're a one-man show, start looking at outsourcing, because you can only do 3 to maybe 5 deals a month on your own. When you get to that point, then you're capped, because you only have so much time in the day. Because if you're the one marketing for sellers, making offers, going on appointments, and also selling the properties, there's not enough time in the day to do all that. I would say outsource. First thing you should outsource is probably get a VA that will take the seller lead calls and give them a script to follow. And that way that talking to sellers most of the day is outsourced. And I would say once you're feeling overwhelmed and you can't, things are falling through the cracks, that's when you should start outsourcing for sure. Once you get to a point where you're doing 5, 10 deals a month, you have to keep outsourcing that until you have to keep outsourcing to do more. So because, you can make 5 offers a day perfectly and everything will be perfectly sent out. But if you outsource it, you can make 30 offers a day. Maybe all 30 offers are not perfectly correct, but, the offers are getting out. So it is hard to let go of some things in your business, but definitely the only way to grow is to hire people and have them do the work for you. And
that's spot on there.
Yeah.
The outsourcing thing is something that I just recently have, implemented in my own business, Russell, and I am going through birth pains, literally. I found a couple little things, like busy work things in my business that take, let's say take 3 hours. And I hire this VA, but then I got to train the VA or create the training system for the VA. So it forces me to think through the process of, each activity of my day. As an example, Craigslist ads. I might do Craigslist ads and I could spend an hour each day putting up some Craigslist ads, and I'll put together like the most crafty, well-written, attention-getting headline, perfect advertisements, and I'm not able to get that same effectiveness from the VA. But what I had to do was sit down and come up with a process of, here's exactly how I create the ad. Here's a template to use. Here you copy and paste this information into the Craigslist ad, here. And then you put it with these photos. Here's where you get the photos. So I had to spend, say, 4 or 5 hours creating the Craigslist training video or system to hand off that task to a VA, so I'm not constantly bombarded by questions from the outsourced task to continuously manage that task. It's basically now run on autopilot. And I bet you, Russell, there's somebody who's listening to this interview right now who found me through those Craigslist ads, and they're probably like, man, this guy's spamming to death, all these Craigslist ads, blah, 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 blah. And they're probably laughing right now as they hear me, that's like my outsourced, fill in the blank template process that had freed up, and now those ads are posted on a regular basis instead of, say, 1 to 2 days a week, if and when I have time with all the other, tasks to put, something as simple as Craigslist ads up for the properties that I'm marketing. So cool. Did you have any other final thoughts here before we wrap up, Russell?
I mean, for new people, you just have to focus on the money-making tasks, How I like everyone to think about it is the bigger your database is, the more money you're going to make as far as seller leads and buyers leads. So if you're working on that daily and you're shutting the TV off and not watching sports, let's say you're watching the basketball game for 3 hours. In those 3 hours, you could have had 20 seller leads into your database. Maybe you're not going to make 10, 15 grand off these leads now, but 7, 8, 9 months, a year from now, you may make 10, 15 grand off these leads. So that's how I want, new people to think about it as far as, building a database and basically following up with leads. It's, the bigger your database, the more money you make. You basically have to, stop procrastinating and just get in there and do it.
Cool. Well, Russell, I appreciate you coming on the show and giving so generously of your knowledge and time here for our listeners. I really thank you for coming out.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dan. I appreciate it.
You got it. And thank you for listening to this episode of the REI Diamonds Podcast. Are you enjoying the REI Diamonds Podcast? Maybe you know someone else who might enjoy this episode. The best compliment you can give to me is a referral, and you might even help them out. You can also sign up to receive email updates of new weekly interviews at www.reidiamonds.com. And as a bonus for signing up, I'll also send you my special report called 7 Sources of Off-Market Deals. That website again is www.reidiamonds.com. You may also subscribe in the iTunes app. Just search REI Diamonds and click subscribe. Until next time, this is Dan Breslin, signing off.
Thanks for listening to the REI Diamond Interview. To receive the REI Diamonds newsletter and interview monthly, sign up now at www.reidiamonds.com.